There is a moment when your silence becomes more powerful than your words, when you stop explaining, stop chasing, and stop seeking attention. But silence is not about punishment. It is about mastering your own energy. In this journey, I will show you the deeper psychology behind ignoring a man, how emotional control creates respect, and how the art of silence can transform the way others see your value. Here is my promise with you, our loyal audience. I will prove it right at the end of this speech. By the end of this wisdom, you will understand how to use silence not as a weapon against someone else, but as a discipline to strengthen your mind, protect your peace, and regain control over your own power. Let's get started. Number 1. The hidden power of silence. Why your absence speaks louder than your words. There is a language that does not need a single word to be understood. It is the language of silence. Many people believe that power comes from speaking louder, explaining more, proving themselves, and making others understand their pain. But true inner strength does not come from constantly expressing yourself. It comes from knowing when your energy is better protected than explained. A person who has mastered themselves does not react to every situation. They do not allow every message, every action, or every disappointment to control their emotions. They understand that attention is a form of energy, and wherever you place your attention, you give a part of yourself. This is why silence can be powerful. Not because silence forces another person to suffer, not because silence is a game, not because silence is a way to manipulate someone. Silence becomes powerful when it comes from self-respect. When you stop trying to convince someone of your value, you begin to recognize your own value. Many people spend their lives trying to be understood by those who are not willing to listen. They explain their feelings again and again. They repeat their expectations. They ask, "Why did you do this? Why don't you care? Why am I not enough?" But sometimes, the more you speak, the more you lose your own center. Your mind becomes trapped in another person's reaction. You wait for their response, you wait for their apology, you wait for them to finally see what they have done. But a peaceful mind does not wait for another person to give permission to feel complete. A peaceful mind learns to stand by itself. Silence is not the absence of communication. Silence is communication at a deeper level. When someone always has access to your attention, they may begin to take that attention for granted. They become comfortable receiving your energy without understanding its value. But when you step back, when you become quiet, something changes. Not because you are trying to create fear, but because distance creates awareness. People often recognize the importance of something when they no longer receive it automatically. Think about sunlight. When the sun shines every day, people rarely stop to appreciate it. But after many days of darkness, even a small ray of light feels precious. Your presence can be similar. When you constantly give your time, your explanations, your emotions, and your effort, some people may stop recognizing the gift they are receiving. Your silence creates space, and in that space, people have the opportunity to reflect. But remember something important. The purpose of silence is not to control another person. The purpose of silence is to control yourself. A weak person uses silence because they want someone else to suffer. A strong person uses silence because they want to return to peace. This difference changes everything. When your silence comes from anger, it still means the other person controls you. You are silent because you want a reaction. You want them to chase you. You want them to feel your absence. But when your silence comes from wisdom, you are free. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer performing. You are simply protecting your inner balance. A true master understands that the strongest response is sometimes no response. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding deserves your energy. Imagine someone throwing a stone into a calm lake. The stone creates waves, but after some time the lake becomes still again. Why? Because the lake does not fight the stone. It does not chase the stone. It does not ask why the stone entered its space. It simply returns to its natural state. Your mind should become like this lake. People may say things. People may misunderstand you. people may walk away, but your inner peace should not depend on external movements. The moment you learn this, you become difficult to disturb. Many people fear silence because silence forces them to face themselves. When the noise disappears, thoughts become louder. When distractions disappear, emotions appear. This is why many people constantly seek attention. They do not want to sit with themselves. They do not want to feel their own loneliness. They do not want to discover their own weaknesses. But a person who can sit in silence without feeling empty has discovered something rare. They have discovered themselves. The world teaches you to chase success, chase approval, chase attention, chase people who are walking away. But wisdom teaches something different. Do not chase what requires you to abandon yourself. If someone values you, your presence will be appreciated. If someone does not value you, endless explanations will not create value. A diamond does not become valuable because it begs people to notice it. A diamond remains valuable because of what it is. Your value exists before anyone recognizes it. This is the foundation of emotional strength. Many people misunderstand ignoring someone. They think it means becoming cold. They think it means becoming heartless. But true silence is not coldness. A mountain is silent, yet it is powerful. The ocean is quiet from a distance, yet it carries immense strength. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the highest form of self-control. When you no longer react immediately, you create a space between what happens and how you respond. Inside that space is your freedom. Someone may hurt you, someone may disappoint you, someone may leave, but you decide whether that moment controls your entire life. This is the hidden power of silence. It gives you back ownership of yourself. But silence alone is not enough, because there is a deeper battle happening inside the mind, the battle between emotional reaction and emotional mastery. And understanding this difference is where true control begins. 2. Emotional control, the difference between ignoring someone and mastering yourself. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not against another person. It is against the uncontrolled reactions inside your own mind. Many people believe they are powerful because they can make others feel something. They believe power means making someone jealous, making someone regret, making someone chase. But this is not real power. Real power is when your emotions no longer depend on another person's behavior. If someone gives you attention, you remain peaceful. If someone removes attention, you remain peaceful. If someone praises you, you remain humble. If someone criticizes you, you remain stable. This is emotional control. The person who controls your emotions controls your life. Think about this carefully. If one message from someone can completely change your mood, if one person's silence can destroy your confidence, if one person's opinion can decide how you feel about yourself, then you have given them control over your inner world. And a wise person never gives away that power easily. Emotional control does not mean you stop feeling. It does not mean you become a robot. It does not mean you ignore pain. Pain is part of being human. The difference is that a strong person feels the emotion but does not become controlled by it. A weak reaction says, "They hurt me, so I must hurt them back." A stronger mind says, "They hurt me, so I must understand myself better." The first reaction creates more suffering. The second creates growth. When someone hurts you, your first instinct may be to prove your importance. You may want to send a long message explaining your feelings. You may want them to understand your pain. You may want them to realize what they lost. But ask yourself, are you doing this from peace or are you doing this from fear? Are you expressing yourself because it is necessary or are you seeking validation? These questions reveal the truth of your intention. A person who has emotional control does not make decisions from a wounded ego. They wait, they observe, they understand. Because emotions are like waves. A wave feels powerful when you are inside it, but if you wait, it eventually passes. Many mistakes happen because people act during the highest point of their emotions. They send messages they later regret. They say words they cannot take back. They destroy relationships because they allowed one temporary emotion to create a permanent consequence. A trained mind knows, do not make permanent decisions from temporary feelings. This is why silence can become a form of discipline. Silence gives your mind time to return to balance. It allows wisdom to speak louder than anger. It allows your higher self to guide you instead of your wounded emotions. A person who masters silence does not become invisible. They become centered. They stop asking, "How can I make this person understand my value?" And they start asking, "How can I honor my own value?" This shift changes everything, because when you respect yourself, your actions become different. You no longer beg for attention. You no longer compete for love. You no longer force connections that are naturally falling apart. You understand that some doors close because life is protecting your path. But emotional control also requires understanding another truth. Sometimes people do not miss you because they suddenly understand your value. Sometimes they miss the comfort you provided. They miss the attention. They miss the availability. They miss the energy you gave. This is why wisdom is needed. Do not confuse someone missing your presence with someone respecting your value. A person can miss what you provided without understanding who you truly are. This is why your transformation must begin inside. Do not become silent just to make someone come back. Become silent to come back to yourself, because the greatest reunion is not always with another person. Sometimes it is with your own peace. When you stop chasing reactions, you become free. When you stop trying to control people, you begin controlling yourself. And this is the highest level of emotional strength. A calm person is not someone who has no emotions. A calm person is someone who has emotions but chooses their response. They understand that every reaction has a cost. Every word carries energy. Every action creates a consequence, so they move carefully. They speak when their words can create understanding. They remain silent when words would only create more conflict. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. The world often celebrates those who react quickly. But true masters are those who can pause. Because in the pause there is awareness. In awareness there is choice. And in choice there is freedom. The moment you master your emotions, you stop being controlled by external situations. You stop allowing someone's behavior to decide your peace. You become the person who chooses the direction of your own mind. And when your mind becomes steady, something powerful happens. People no longer see someone who is desperate for attention. They see someone who has learned the rarest skill of all, the ability to stand peacefully within themselves. 3. The psychology behind a man's reaction when your attention disappears. There is something deeply connected with human nature that many people do not understand. People often recognize the value of something not when it is always present, but when its presence changes. This is not only about relationships. It is part of human psychology. The mind naturally pays attention to change. When something remains the same every day, the brain begins to accept it as normal. But when something familiar suddenly becomes different, the mind becomes curious. This is why a person who was always available, suddenly becoming calm and distant, can create a powerful psychological effect. But understand this carefully. The purpose of stepping back is not to create anxiety in another person. The purpose is not to play games. The purpose is not to make someone afraid of losing you. The deeper purpose is to return balance to a relationship and to yourself. When your attention disappears, what truly changes is not only the other person's experience. What changes is your position. For a long time, you may have been the person who always reached out, the person who always started conversations, the person who always tried to repair things, the person who always gave another chance. Over time, this creates an imbalance. One person gives, one person receives, one person tries, one person becomes comfortable. And whenever there is an imbalance, there is a loss of respect. Not always because the other person is cruel, sometimes because human beings naturally adapt to what is constantly available. Think about breathing. You do not think about every breath you take. You do not wake up every morning saying, "I am grateful that I can breathe." But if your breathing becomes difficult, suddenly every breath becomes valuable. This is how attention works. When someone receives your attention without effort, they may forget that your attention is a gift. But when you step back with wisdom, you create an opportunity for awareness. The silence allows the other person to experience the difference. They begin to notice the space where your energy used to be. They begin to ask questions. Why is this person different? Why are they no longer trying so hard? Why are they not reacting like before? This moment can create reflection, but the most important reflection is not theirs, it is yours. Because many people use distance only as a strategy to get someone back. They think, if I disappear, they will chase me. If I stop texting, they will realize my value. If I become silent, they will fear losing me. But if your entire purpose is to receive a reaction, then you are still controlled by that person. Your silence is not freedom if you are waiting for someone else to respond. True strength begins when your peace exists whether they return or not. This is the difference between emotional manipulation and emotional maturity. A manipulative person withdraws attention to create a reaction. A mature person creates distance to protect their peace. The outside action may look similar, but the intention is completely different. One comes from insecurity, the other comes from self-respect. A wise person does not ask, how can I make someone miss me? A wise person asks, how can I stop abandoning myself? Because many people lose themselves while trying to keep another person. They ignore their own needs. They accept disrespect. They constantly explain their feelings. They become exhausted trying to prove that they deserve care. But love, respect, and appreciation cannot be forced. You cannot convince someone to value what they refuse to see. You can only show them your standard through your actions. Sometimes your silence communicates something your words could never express. I respect myself enough to step away from what disturbs my peace. This message is powerful because it does not attack, it does not blame, it simply shows inner stability. A person with emotional strength does not need to announce their boundaries, their behavior reveals them. They do not need to say, I will not accept disrespect. They simply stop participating in situations where disrespect becomes normal. They do not need to say, you cannot hurt me anymore. They simply stop giving unlimited access to someone who repeatedly causes pain. This is where many people misunderstand the psychology of attention. Attention is not just time. Attention is emotional investment. Every message, every explanation, every attempt to fix, every moment spent thinking about someone, all of these are forms of energy. And when you constantly give energy without receiving balance, you slowly become disconnected from yourself. The person who masters their attention becomes powerful because they understand something important. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention is always focused on someone who ignores you, you are building your life around their behavior. But if your attention returns to yourself, you begin rebuilding your own foundation. You start improving, you start healing, you start becoming stronger, and something interesting happens. People often become more aware of you when you stop trying so desperately to be noticed. Why? Because desperation pushes people away, but confidence creates attraction. Desperation says, please see my value. Confidence says, my value exists whether you see it or not. This energy is different. People can feel the difference between someone who needs validation and someone who has found inner stability. A person who has mastered themselves does not become valuable because someone finally notices them. They become noticeable because they have become valuable to themselves first. But there is another truth we must understand. Silence alone does not create respect. The person behind the silence creates respect. If you become silent but remain emotionally desperate inside, nothing has changed. You may not send messages, but your mind is still waiting. You may not speak, but your heart is still begging. Real transformation happens when your external silence matches your internal peace. When you no longer need someone's attention to feel complete. When you no longer measure your worth by someone's response. When you no longer fear losing someone more than losing yourself. That is when your energy changes. And when your energy changes, your relationships change. Because people respond differently to someone who knows their own worth. They realize they cannot access you in the same careless way. They realize your kindness is not weakness. They realize your patience is not unlimited. They realize your presence is valuable. But the deepest lesson is this: do not become silent to make someone chase you. Become silent so you can hear yourself again. Because the greatest power is not making someone notice your absence. It is becoming so connected with yourself that you no longer fear anyone leaving. And when you reach this level of inner freedom, another transformation begins. You stop chasing what was never meant to be forced. 4. Stop chasing, start attracting. How detachment creates inner strength and respect. Many people spend years chasing things that were never meant to be chased. They chase attention, they chase approval, they chase someone's affection, they chase the feeling of being chosen. But wisdom teaches a different way. What is truly valuable does not need to be chased constantly. A flower does not run after the butterfly. It simply becomes beautiful, and the butterfly comes naturally. This is the principle of attraction. When you stop chasing, you do not stop caring. You stop forcing. There is a difference. A person who chases says, "I need you to complete me." A person who attracts says, "I am already complete, and I welcome what adds to my life." This shift changes your entire energy. Many people think attraction comes from appearance, words, or techniques. But the strongest attraction comes from inner stability. People are naturally drawn to those who are comfortable within themselves. A calm person creates calm around them. A confident person creates confidence around them. A peaceful person creates peace around them. This is why detachment is powerful. Detachment does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean you stop loving. It does not mean you stop caring about people. Detachment means you love without losing yourself. You care without becoming dependent. You appreciate someone without making them the source of your happiness. This is a very difficult lesson because many people confuse love with attachment. Attachment says, "I need you to behave a certain way so I can feel okay." Yeah. Love says, "I value you, but I also value myself." Attachment creates fear. Love creates freedom. When you are attached, you constantly worry. Will they leave? Will they change? Do they still care? Am I enough? Your mind becomes trapped in uncertainty. But when you develop inner strength, you understand. The right person will not require you to destroy your peace to keep them. The right connection will not require constant begging. The right relationship will not make you abandon yourself. This is why chasing often creates the opposite result of what people want. The more you chase someone who is pulling away, the more you communicate fear. You communicate, "I cannot be okay without you." And when someone feels that another person cannot stand without them, balance disappears. Respect begins to disappear. But when you step back and return your energy to yourself, something changes. You communicate, "My heart is open, but my identity does not depend on your presence." This creates a different kind of respect, because people respect what has boundaries. They respect what has discipline. They respect what cannot be easily controlled. A mountain does not move because someone demands it to move. A tree does not change its roots because someone dislikes its position. Nature remains grounded, and human beings must learn the same lesson. Your foundation must be inside you, not in someone's attention, not in someone's approval, not in someone's constant reassurance. When you build your identity on external things, you become fragile. When you build your identity on inner values, you become strong. This is why stopping the chase is not about winning against someone else. It is about winning against the version of yourself that believed you were not enough. The moment you stop begging for what should naturally be given, you reclaim your dignity. You begin asking better questions. Instead of, Why are they not choosing me? You ask, why am I choosing someone who does not recognize my value? Instead of, how can I make them love me? You ask, how can I create a life that I deeply love? These questions change your direction, because your life should not become a waiting room for someone else's decision. You should not pause your happiness while hoping someone realizes your importance. Your growth cannot wait for another person's understanding. Your peace cannot depend on another person's maturity. Sometimes people only recognize your value after they see you no longer sacrificing yourself. But whether they recognize it or not, your journey must continue. The strongest people are not those who never lose anyone. The strongest people are those who never lose themselves while loving someone. This is the foundation of true emotional power. You can care deeply, you can love sincerely, you can be kind, but you can also have boundaries. You can walk away from what damages your peace. You can choose yourself without hatred. You can leave a situation without needing revenge. This is emotional freedom, and emotional freedom is one of the highest forms of strength. When you stop chasing, you create space. Space for growth, space for healing, space for better opportunities, space for people who appreciate your presence. Because sometimes life cannot bring something new into your hands because your hands are still holding tightly to what is hurting you. Release creates possibility. Silence creates awareness. Detachment creates strength. And strength creates a different kind of life. The moment you stop running after people, you begin walking toward yourself. Patience and discipline. You discover something powerful. The person you were searching for approval from was never the source of your worth. You were. 5. The discipline of silence, protecting your energy without losing your compassion. There is a difference between becoming silent and becoming peaceful. Many people can stop talking, but very few people can truly become still inside. They may become quiet on the outside, but inside their mind is full of arguments, anger, and questions. They think, why did this happen to me? Why did they treat me this way? Will they come back? Do they regret losing me? The mouth may be silent, but the mind is still fighting. This is not true silence. True silence begins when you no longer allow another person to control the movement of your inner world. It is not about refusing to speak. It is about learning when your energy deserves your attention and when it does not. A wise person understands that every reaction has a price. Every argument takes energy. Every explanation takes energy. Every attempt to prove yourself takes energy. And your energy is one of the most valuable things you possess. You cannot touch it. You cannot see it. But it decides the quality of your life. Where your energy goes, your life follows. If your energy is always focused on someone who hurts you, ignores you, or misunderstands you, slowly you lose connection with yourself. You begin living around another person's actions instead of your own purpose. This is why silence becomes a discipline. Discipline means choosing what is good for you, even when emotions tell you to do something else. Your emotions may tell you, send one more message. Explain one more time. Give one more chance. Or try harder. But wisdom asks a different question. Is this action coming from love or fear? Why? Because many people confuse effort with love. They believe that if they keep trying, keep explaining, and keep sacrificing, eventually someone will understand their value. But value does not come from how much you tolerate. Value comes from how deeply you respect yourself. A person who respects themselves does not become cruel. They simply become clear. They understand that kindness without boundaries can become self-neglect. Compassion without wisdom can become suffering. Love without self-respect can become losing yourself. This is why silence is a form of protection. Imagine a person carrying a heavy bag for many years. Inside this bag are disappointments, old conversations, painful memories, and the need to be understood. One day they realize the bag was never helping them move forward, so they place it down. They are not angry at the bag, they are not fighting the bag, they simply understand that they do not need to carry it anymore. This is what emotional silence does. It allows you to release what is not yours to carry. Someone else's opinion is not yours to carry. Someone else's choices are not yours to carry. Someone else's inability to appreciate you is not yours to carry. Your responsibility is not to control another person. Your responsibility is to master yourself. A person who has mastered silence does not become disconnected from humanity. They become more aware. They listen more deeply. They observe more carefully. They understand that not every battle deserves their participation. A river does not stop flowing because a stone stands in its path. It simply finds another way. This is a powerful lesson. Sometimes your greatest strength is not removing every obstacle. Sometimes your greatest strength is remaining peaceful while obstacles exist. The world will always contain difficult people. There will always be misunderstandings. There will always be moments when others do not see your intentions. But your peace cannot depend on everyone understanding you. If you need everyone to understand you, you will spend your entire life trying to explain yourself. And while you are explaining, you may forget to live. A wise person accepts something important. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will appreciate your heart. Not everyone will recognize your efforts. And that is okay. A tree does not stop growing because someone does not like its leaves. A bird does not stop singing because someone does not appreciate its song. Nature does not ask for permission to be itself. You must learn the same lesson. Your existence does not require constant approval. Your worth does not need constant confirmation. This is where compassion becomes powerful. Some people believe that protecting their energy means becoming cold. They think they must stop caring. They think they must build walls around their heart. But a wall and a boundary are different. A wall blocks everything. A boundary protects what is valuable. A wise person does not close their heart. They simply become more careful about who receives access to it. They still forgive. They still wish others well. They still have compassion. But they no longer allow compassion to become a reason to accept repeated harm. Forgiveness does not mean returning to the same situation. Understanding someone does not mean allowing them to continue hurting you. You can understand another person's pain while still protecting your own peace. This is emotional maturity. Many people remain trapped because they believe choosing themselves is selfish. But how can you truly give love to others when you have abandoned yourself? A person who has no inner peace cannot create lasting peace around them. A person who constantly seeks validation cannot freely give love. A person who is emotionally exhausted cannot deeply support others. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is preparation to become stronger. Silence teaches this lesson. It teaches you to sit with yourself, to understand your thoughts, to observe your emotions, to recognize your patterns. Because when you become comfortable with your own presence, you stop desperately searching for someone else to complete you. And this creates a new level of freedom. You no longer fear being alone. You no longer chase people who walk away. You no longer beg someone to recognize your value. You become peaceful with what is. But this peace creates another transformation. When you stop fighting for attention, you begin discovering something greater than being noticed. You begin discovering the power of becoming unshakable. 6. Becoming unshakable when your peace no longer depends on someone's actions. The highest level of emotional strength is not controlling others. It is no longer being controlled by them. Many people spend their lives trying to change external situations. They try to change people. They try to change opinions. They try to change how others treat them. But the person who understands wisdom looks deeper. They ask, what can I control within myself? What? Because the world outside will always move, people will change, relationships will change, circumstances will change. But the person who has built a strong inner foundation remains steady. This is what it means to become unshakable. It does not mean nothing affects you. It means nothing destroys you. You still feel sadness. You still experience disappointment. You still have moments of pain. But you do not allow temporary storms to destroy your entire inner world. A mountain experiences storms. Rain falls, winds become strong, clouds cover its peak, but the mountain remains. Why? because its strength comes from deep within. Your mind must become like this. Many people give others too much power. One person's message can decide their happiness. One person's silence can decide their confidence. One person's rejection can make them question their worth. But ask yourself, why should another person's behavior have control over the way you see yourself? Someone's inability to appreciate you does not mean you are not valuable. Someone's inability to love you correctly does not mean you are difficult to love. Someone leaving your life does not mean your life has lost meaning. Sometimes people leave because they were never meant to walk the entire journey with you. Some lessons arrive through connection. Some lessons arrive through separation. Both can create growth. The problem is not losing people. The problem is losing yourself while trying to keep them. A person who becomes unshakable understands that everything outside them is temporary. Praise is temporary. Criticism is temporary. Attention is temporary. Even difficult moments are temporary. But the relationship you have with yourself is something you carry everywhere. This is why inner peace must become your foundation. When your peace depends on someone else, you become a prisoner. You constantly monitor their behavior. You analyze their words. You search for hidden meanings. You wonder, are they changing? Oh, do they still care? Did I do something wrong? Your mind becomes exhausted because you are trying to control something that was never yours to control. A wise person releases this burden. They understand, I cannot control someone's feelings toward me, but I can control how I treat myself. This realization is freedom. It allows you to love without fear. It allows you to connect without desperation. It allows you to walk away without hatred. Because you know your peace belongs to you, not to someone else, not to a relationship, not to a situation. You own it. This is the true meaning of emotional independence. Emotional independence does not mean you do not need anyone. Human beings need connection. We need love, we need support. But there is a difference between needing connection and depending on someone for your identity. A healthy heart says, I appreciate having you in my life. An unhealthy attachment says, I cannot be whole without you. Or, the first creates love, the second creates fear. And fear often causes people to accept things they should never accept. They accept disrespect because they fear losing someone. They accept pain because they fear being alone. They accept less because they believe nothing better exists. But when you become unshakable, you remember, being alone is better than losing yourself. Peace is better than constant confusion. Self-respect is better than temporary attention. This wisdom changes the way you move through life. You stop trying to convince people to choose you. You start choosing yourself. You stop asking, why did they not value me? You start asking, how can I continue valuing myself? This is where true transformation begins. Because when you value yourself deeply, your standards change. You become careful with your time. You become careful with your energy. You become careful with your heart. Not because you are afraid, because you have learned your worth. A person who knows their worth does not need to announce it. Their actions reveal it. Their calm reveals it. Their boundaries reveal it. Their silence reveals it. They no longer need to prove that they are valuable. They live in a way that reflects it. This is the final lesson of silence. Silence was never about making another person feel your absence. Silence was about helping you feel your own presence. When you find yourself again, you no longer fear losing what leaves, because you understand something deeper. Anything that requires you to destroy your peace is too expensive to keep. The strongest person is not the one who makes others regret losing them. The strongest person is the one who becomes so connected with themselves that they no longer need anyone's regret to feel complete. This is the art of emotional control. This is the discipline of inner peace. This is the journey of becoming unshakable. At the beginning of this journey, I promised you that you would understand how to use silence not as a weapon against someone else, but as a discipline to strengthen your mind, protect your peace, and regain control over your own power. Now you can see the deeper truth. Silence is not about making someone miss you. Silence is not about creating fear. Silence is not about winning a battle against another person. The highest form of silence is the moment when you no longer need another person's reaction to feel valuable. When you stop chasing, you do not lose your power, you recover it. When you stop explaining yourself to those who refuse to understand, you do not become weak, you become wise. When you protect your energy, you are not becoming cold. You are learning self-respect. The true art of ignoring a man is not about ignoring his existence. It is about removing your dependence on his attention. It is about becoming so centered within yourself that your happiness is no longer controlled by whether someone stays, leaves, responds, or changes. A person who masters silence becomes free. They can love deeply without losing themselves. They can care without begging. They can forgive without accepting repeated pain. They can walk away without anger because their peace is no longer attached to another person's choices. This is the real emotional control. The strongest person is not the one who can make someone chase them. The strongest person is the one who no longer needs to be chased to know their worth. Short conclusion of our today's topic. Silence is not an empty space. It is a place where you discover your strength. Through silence, you learn to control your emotions, protect your energy, and return your attention back to yourself. Do not use silence to punish others. Use silence to build yourself. Because when your peace comes from within, no one can take your power away.